Hello and welcome to Weekend Rental, episode 17. We're the podcast that talks about gaming, geek culture, and whatever else comes to mind. My name is Ryan, and with me today we've got Andy.
Hello.
And Justin.
Hey, everyone.
All right, so as usual, we're going to kick things off by diving straight into Buy, Rent, Burn. If you are not familiar with the podcast, this is the section where we pick 3 video games. We each pick one game, and we play them all. And we decide which of those games we would personally buy, rent, or burn. The system of choice this month, or this episode rather, is the Sega Genesis. And Andy has gone with Pugsy. Justin has gone with The Tick. And I've gone with Death Duel. So those are our games. And now we're going to go back through and just kind of hear a little bit about them and discuss them briefly before we make our decisions. We will start off with Andy's pick, Pugsy. Again, this came out in 1993. The description on this one, Pugsy is no ordinary game. Using the unique system of Total Object Interaction, or TOI for short, you have to guide Pugsy through some of the best puzzles and most frantic arcade action ever seen in his quest to retrieve his stolen spaceship. Incorporating graphic techniques never seen before, fantastic gameplay, plus a complete junior section for the younger player, Pugsy is destined to become the next worldwide smash hit. That is a very BS description for a game. They love the game that they made.
Best puzzles?
Does it live up to that? Yeah.
Frantic action? The only frantic action I had was stopping all the barrels that I stacked up from falling.
The shaking when you run into them too.
I just imagine these guys every trade show too with Pugsy. Like, hey, you know what our game's got? It doesn't have blast processing. It has Total Object Interaction. TOI. Yeah.
We got the new
and everyone's just looking at them like, what?
It's interesting. It's certainly something that you don't see in those old games, is that object picking up and actually using it. And I don't know, it's almost like it's got some sort of physics in it. You can use a gun for traversal.
Yeah.
Way before Portal did it. So
also, I'd like to point out that when you first pick up the gun, that it's so badass. The Pugsy just grabs guns gangster style, arm up in the air over his head.
Yep.
Shoots. I don't know, that is quite the animation for a blob using a gun.
It's just kind of funny because obviously the first levels are almost like tutorial. They're so short and they just want you to do the one action that they want you to do in order to pass the level.
Which in the first case is walk right.
Yeah.
That's literally the interaction. Can you walk right? Let's test this. Level 1.
I couldn't believe that. I saw this and I'm like, oh, is this one of those games that has 500 levels, and it's just increasingly difficult just little by little. But
my 4-year-old son was watching me play the first level, and when I walked through and exited the stage, he's like, there were no bad guys? I'm like, I guess not. Yeah, my mind is just as blown as yours right now. I have no idea. When a 4-year-old realizes that that's strange, though, that's a problem.
The real skill is whether or not you bring that seashell with you to the exit, because you get bonus points if you bring the seashell to the exit.
I hate those situations where you're sitting there with 3 things at the end of the level, and you're like, which one is going to give me the most points?
Yeah.
I hope I don't choose poorly.
Yeah, but I love that level where it's you grab the gun, and obviously there's a crab there right away to shoot. So that's cool. But right after that, it's hey, you need to climb up this ledge, and you basically hook the end of your gun on top of it, and you kind of bounce up. And that's what a lot of this game is getting up to a ledge with an item and just kind of bouncing up to the ledge. And I don't know, it's kind of interesting, but when you have too many items involved, especially a lot of the bonus stuff and a lot of the extra stuff is higher up, oh, you need to stack these 5 barrels to get up there. And you just bump it a little bit and all the barrels just come falling down or get all messed up.
Yeah.
It's incredibly frustrating. So toward the end, I wasn't even going for the higher up things. I would find the exit and be like, okay, what do I need to get to it? And that's about it.
Yeah, it's interesting because like when you first start out, and like definitely the first couple levels, like you're very much like, oh, this is kind of a cool, interesting little platformer, and then yeah, it becomes apparently clear that this is more of like a puzzle solving game that just happens to have like a platformer skinned around, the majority of the movement. But I don't know, it's got an art style and like animations that like for the Genesis, I think kind of stand out. I mean, even that generation, like it's just like you said, like the almost physics based aspect with the pieces you interact with is really cool.
Yeah, the graphics are almost like pre-rendered, not quite as good as
Yeah.
like Donkey Kong Country, but it's kind of somewhere in between that, I would say.
Yeah, they definitely have like
Yeah.
some depth to them. Like there's like those characters seem like they're almost popping out at you.
Yeah,
I will say I hated the map screen. I don't know whose design choice it was to like take 80% of the main screen with just a static map and like have your level select be this tiny little wedge in the corner.
Yeah.
Like that was awful. Like who wants that?
I replayed the same level probably 3 times, I think it was,
Yeah.
before I realized that it wasn't the next level because it doesn't automatically go over either.
yeah, you have to move over too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
Well, then you
all
hit the
right, well, I
wrong
beat
button
that
and it just keeps pulling up those bosses. I'm like, why do we
Yeah.
just keep seeing these guys? Like, I don't get it. What's happening here?
Yeah, you have to hit start or something, right, to get into it. Yeah,
Right.
one. Yeah.
I mean, it's not gunboat bad menu system, but it's still not great.
right. Yeah,
They did such a good job with the rest of the game. Like, how did you screw up the most simple part?
yeah. It does kind of remind me. It must have been a PC game or something because that's what it reminds me of. Is like
It sure seems like it.
huge maps and you're just kind of going all these different directions, almost like a maze type thing. Like, oh, I need this item to get up there and this item to get over there, and like almost Commander Keenish style. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit of that mixed with like a little bit of Lemmings,
Mhm.
just in how like it's more about getting yourself to the end of the level than it is about, and interacting in a way to make that happen.
Yep.
It's, I don't know. It's very unique. It just, I think it probably, if I had to guess, I think it's a good enough game. I would guess that this kind of fell victim to the whole, mascot platformer. I mean, sea of competing character games, at that time.
Which
Um,
I'm so confused
you know-
about. Like, you look at Sonic and you think, okay, that's a badass. They really did a good job marketing him and gave him a nice attitude. And then you make, he looks like somebody crapped in one of those orange sacks that you put leaves in and just like say, here you go.
I was gonna say he looks like a nutsack, like separated from the penis. Is kind of like honestly what, especially the box art. If you really look at that, it's a sack on feet. It's not a great character.
No, so that's like where I'm like, oh, mascot. Like, they really didn't, like, that was their best effort at a mascot.
Right. Like this guy is the winner. Yeah, that's true. They probably could have come up with a better central character to put on their box art. Because like this box art is just, I mean, if I looked at that as a kid on a shelf, like you said, next to Sonic, I know which one I'm grabbing. I got Sonic, I got Rocket Knight, hell, even Arrow the Acrobat. If he was next to Pugsy, I would have grabbed.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. The music's pretty awful, though. Did not enjoy the
It's
music.
not great. No.
Oh. Well, this is.
It's
I don't really
serviceable.
remember the
though.
music, I guess. I turned the TV down a little bit when I was playing it, so it must have been bad enough to.
Annoy you.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. So this was published by Psygnosis or whatever, but
Yeah, it's Traveler's Tales and Psygnosis. Yeah, which those two have made, like, both of those are associated with some fairly.
Traveler's
good
Tales,
games.
that's Lego games, right? I think those are the guys that do all the Lego games.
Are they now?
Psygnosis,
Yeah,
I think,
maybe.
is gone now, but they did a ton of good stuff back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, the PlayStation era, they were huge.
Yeah.
They put out Wipeout.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. There is a Sega CD
Cool.
version, so I could see maybe the music being a lot better in that one, obviously, but maybe a different soundtrack altogether.
Yeah. I mean, overall, I think, like, it's a pretty competent game. It's pretty interesting. I mean, if I had the time to sit down, I mean, I could see this one being a worthwhile addition to a game collection. I certainly would have played something like this growing up back in that era. and I still
Yeah.
probably would. I enjoyed it.
Overall, I think it played pretty decent. Like you guys said, the controls were kind of just off. When you get near a barrel or anything you're carrying, it sends everything just flying across the screen. That was my biggest issue.
The barrel stacking is by far like the worst. Like
Yeah.
it's so touchy.
Yeah. You could jump to and just like land on it, and it sends the middle one just flying out, even if you landed on it perfectly.
I do love that you can scale or you can just like scale down giant like cliffs with an item. Just like sliding down the cliff with an item.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. So the Tick, well, this is obviously the Sega Genesis version. This came out in 1994. So description: it's night in the city, and there's a new superhero in town. As the Tick, you have the powers and abilities unknown to mortal men. You're strong enough to use the city as your personal gym without a care in the world until those pesky ninjas, hoods, and clowns pick you as their target. It's time to jump into the action and destroy these bad guys once and for all. And for anyone who's not familiar, The Tick was a comic book, an animated series, which this is based off of like kind of a goofy comic book hero, sort of Deadpoolish and like just the comedy vein, I guess.
They had a movie too, I think, didn't they?
They had a TV show.
Yeah, this is-
There was a live action TV show after the animated show, and I think is it Hulu bringing back a live action show
I think
now?
Amazon, maybe one of those two.
Amazon, yep, it is. No,
Yeah, they have one of them.
it's Amazon. You're right.
Yeah, so this one basically it's a side-scrolling, I guess beat 'em up type game. Honestly, this one, the controls were they weren't terrible, but it was really loose for a fighting game, I thought. But the depth perception when you're on, like, it seems like you're always on a bus
Yeah.
for the first couple levels. Then you get to the buildings, but
The biggest fault too with like the action is just that there's no depth. I mean, there's really no real depth to a combo system, which is, if you're going to keep a beat 'em up game interesting, like you have to have a little bit more than just like 3-button attacks, you know?
Yep.
and everything seemed like they had ranged attacks too, and you
Mhm.
didn't.
Well, yeah, it's a weird choice too that you're like going through huge like open stages of levels, and the only thing coming at you in the way of enemies is just like a ninja screen or a ninja star from off screen, or a like dagger falling out of the sky. Like that,
Yeah,
that's bad game design.
Yeah.
And it's weird because like who's throwing all that stuff at you if nobody's there? does it just rain ninja stars and like spears in this town? I don't understand.
you got to get to the end of the level to find that out. Good luck.
Yeah.
There wasn't a ton of personality to it either. Overall,
No.
what you would expect from the Tick,
Right. I think they like captured some of the personality with the main character, the Tick himself, like
Oh yeah,
some of the gestures, and like he'd do like the flick, like that stuff translated. But yeah, I mean, on the whole, it felt like they took, here's a generic fighting game. Like, let's take this blueprint and then lay the Tick on top of it. Like, he didn't fit into the generic bland world that they built, which I think was weird.
yeah.
And kind of obvious, that it was just like, okay, we're just going to crank this out quick. I will say the one thing that I thought was amazing was not amazing. It wore itself out very quick, is like when you fell off of ledges, instead of dying, you just go, it pops up an enemy and it's like subplot. And then you're down in the street and you have to like take on another, superhero nemesis guy. And then you go back up to the stage where you fell off the ledge, and it's cool. I mean, the only other game I've ever seen that does that is Clash of Demon Head on the NES,
Yeah.
and it was like one of my favorite features of that game also. And it also adds, another layer of like that comic book, like sort of series feel to the Tick. There's some good stuff that happens down there. Like, I don't know, did any of you guys like fall into the pit and like come up against that like pseudo Clark Kent Superman character?
Yeah. Took me a long time to figure out what you needed to do there.
Right, me too. You punch the crap out of him, and then finally you walk far enough right to pick up the kryptonite, and then
Yep.
it's like one punch done.
Yeah.
So like that stuff like was great, and it made me laugh. The thing is like that's 1/10 of the game. I mean, it's just not that consistently like tongue in cheek or that consistently like fun. I mean, it's
Yeah, that was the only one I was going to bring up too.
yeah. I loved that. Like that made me laugh. Like I mean, I had a huge dumb smile on my face when I figured that one out. It was good.
Yeah.
I didn't pick that one. I had one where the sprinting across back and forth.
Oh, that guy sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the chainsaw.
Yeah, and that was the
guy.
problem too. Is I was gonna say because like that was where it started to wear thin for me because like I got the chainsaw guy like 3 times. I'm like, if this is as much depth as you're gonna put into this mechanic, like you probably shouldn't run with it so hard because they almost force you to fall in the pits. Because like you said, like just random stuff flying across the screen, it like they always stage them so that they'll hit you and knock you back over a pit and fall in, and not a pit, but like a gap between buildings.
And he's just such
I
a
don't know.
giant sprite.
Oh, huge, yeah, and that like
It's everything.
yep. Yeah, it's just tough because like this is a beat 'em up game on a system with some of the greatest beat 'em ups of all time. You know, the Tick just can't hold its own on the Genesis. I mean, it's one defining characteristic. You know, just the goofiness of the Tick is not well executed, and the rest of the game doesn't stand up against any of its counterparts in that genre.
It must have random.
Random what?
Oh, when you fall in the pit, it must be random bosses or whatever that show up. Then, it's not
Yeah,
set ones.
it's randomized, but I think it's like a limited set that can appear because I think that's where I started seeing the repetition like pretty quickly.
I had 3 of those speed guys in a row. That's
That's brutal. Yeah, he
That's
was
when I
the
gave
worst.
on the third one. I was like, "Fuck this, I'm done."
Well, yeah, there was no strategy to that other than wait for him to come back, punch, sidestep, wait for him to come back, punch, sidestep. This is dumb. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of like, I mean, that kind of sums up the game to me. It's like it's one coolest feature is also the thing that like makes you want to walk away from it after a while, you know?
Yeah. Especially since you're, like you said, practically forced down there constantly.
It's too bad. Has anyone played the Super Nintendo version? Is it the same game, do you know, or was this like a case of where they're slightly different?
I bet it's the same game.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I guess, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I like the transition. Like right away, you start off on that bus, which kind of sucks in like a getting your, but beat 'em ups are all about getting in the same lane as the enemies to get it, the same plane to punch them. And if they're toward the bottom, it's easy to just like jump over and fall right off the bus. And it was kind of abrupt beginning to that game. And then immediately after that, it's like, oh, now we're in 2D, we're a 2D platformer, it's like, okay.
Right. Yeah. It was a weird introductory stage. It was like super limited and super difficult to stay in control. Yeah, I agree.
Plus basic ninjas are boring.
Yeah. What are you talking about? They had 3 different colors, red, blue, and black.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
I mean, it's nowhere near the top tier like Growl is, so.
Well, nothing can compete with Growl. All right, so let's move on to Death Duel. So Death Duel, I'll read the description here. I read this description ahead of time, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that this might be the best description of any game we'll have on Byron Burn in a good long time. So the description of this one: the searing hiss of metal breaks the silence of dawn. As I step through the fleshy remains of my previous opponent, I realize the metal behemoth is about to face more fiercely equipped with deadly Rotobor proton rockets. I know I represent our final hope as I mount the Federation's newest war machine, the A7 Trinity Cyborg. The signal is given. I must proceed to the dueling ground. Today, death is in the air and mercy in my guns. So let him beg for mercy.
Wow.
And end scene.
Yeah.
That second line, step through the fleshy remains. It's like, that's awesome.
Yeah, that sounds like George R.R. Martin wrote that or something.
I'm going to go on a limb here and say if the ESRB existed and this game came out, this would have gotten an M.
Yeah.
Just on that description alone.
Yeah. Among other things that we've seen in the game, too. So.
Yes. Nipple pixels, anyone? We'll get to that. But so basically what Death Duel is you live in this future, I don't know what year it is, where every intergalactic and Federation like argument is settled not by law or courts, it's settled by death duels. So they put robots and monsters and whatever into battles to kill each other, and you decide your political outcomings by victory or death. And this is a very unique game. It almost looks like you'd be playing this as a light gun game, where you're in a first-person view of sorts, I guess, staring down an opponent across the field. There are some barriers and things that come up in the way, little bits of cover that you can duck behind. But basically, the strategy is just to figure out the weakness of each opponent, which particular weapon will deal the most damage to said opponent, and attack that weak spot and exploit it. So there's quite a bit of trial and error. And it's all done with sort of this weird, like, steampunk, post-apocalyptic art style and like vibe around it, I guess. What did you guys think of it?
When I first seen it, I was like, "Oh, this has potential." It seemed like it'd be an interesting game. That first boss you go against, it gives you the preset, I guess, ammo or rounds, whatever you want to call them. And like a couple of them, it seemed like the fireball was like kind of like it curved up. So you could like get it under certain blocks and stuff so you could like destroy the wall and then actually hit it underneath them and get the legs out of them and stuff. Just the aspect of that was kind of cool, but then it got extremely frustrating because all he sat was behind the wall. So then you couldn't do anything else once you took his legs out. So you're either waiting, 30 seconds for him to move. You can kind of draw him out by moving back and forth across the screen, and he'll kind of try to follow you. But it was super frustrating. I did actually beat the first two, and then I got to where you would purchase again, and that's when I quit. The second boss was even worse. Just he's so fast.
Yeah, well, that second one always loves to run to the edge of the screen where he's still on screen, but you can't shoot. Like, if you don't take his legs out right away, you are screwed.
Yep. It was kind of funny. Like we made a video kind of on this for our YouTube channel just to preview this game a little bit, and that was by far the most irritating thing, was that guy going to the edge of the screen and you can't shoot over to him, and he can still shoot you, no problems. But yeah, getting to him just kind of sucked. But yeah, hiding behind the walls, that's kind of, I can't believe this isn't like a Menacer game, like you said, like a light gun game.
Right. Yep.
It's kind of surprising that wasn't an option. But
yeah, and we kind of touched on it like jokingly in the stream, where it's like, you carved a part off this monster, like skin it like you would in Monster Hunter. And I feel like that's the sort of game this is. It's a game that like doesn't hold your hand and doesn't really point stuff out to you. But if you're willing to like sink the time into it and deal with like some of the random shit you can't control, when you do finally pull off a win, like, it's extremely satisfying. It's just that it requires a lot of trial and error. It's not going to tell you what you need to do or what you need to attack or what weapon set you need to do that. So in that sense, like, you're going to be trying stuff and failing repeatedly before you progress. So, I mean, I think that's good and bad depending on the kind of player you are. I mean, it certainly can be frustrating. And it is. I mean, for me, it got frustrating, but it still feels good when you pull off the win. I do really like the art style, and not just for this reason, but we talked about how it's kind of ridiculous because it's sort of like an edgy game. It's the sort of game you kind of would have expected on the Genesis back then. Like, you've got the round girl or card girl that kind of comes out and holds the, like, kicks off the match each time, and she's wearing like Daisy Dukes and has obviously large breasts because, I don't know, video games. But then the addition of a pixel for a nipple on each boob seems unnecessary and kind of hilarious, given that this came out in 1992. Like, if I was a kid and played this in 1992 at the age I was, I would love this game just for that. But then like some of the other like ridiculousness, like the cool art style, like the shop guy with the like little flashing LED or LCD sign that just says "Touch my monkey," and he's got like a monkey that sits on his shoulder. Like I don't know. There's so much like tongue in cheek, like goofiness to this that it kind of rounds out the package. But all in all, it's a very strange game. Like I don't know that I've played any other game other than a light gun game, which this feels very closely modeled after, that, you know, handles like this, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that shopkeeper looks straight out of Mad Max, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
But the violence in the game is something even above most Sega games in 1992. I mean, Mortal Kombat wasn't quite out yet, right?
Yeah,
on
that's true.
Sega, where it's like, I mean, you can shoot these guys' heads right off, and it's just a bloody stump, you know?
Yeah, every limb is destroyable. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
One thing I was kind of hoping that you would actually be able to see give a description about the ammo as you're purchasing it, because you don't know anything about it. Really.
Yeah, that is its biggest
That's where
downfall.
the trial and error comes in. But it would have just been nice to, I guess, be able to see that, a little bit of description on it.
Yeah, they could have fixed that really easily if they'd have given you like, even if they'd have just had like a shooting range where like you could test out like 3 rounds of each ammo, you know, before you purchased. Because that's really all they needed to like, or stats, you know, like this is effective against X, you know. That was a key element that was missing from this game to really, you know, let you strategize a little bit more, because you kind of have to memorize then at what each weapon does, and that's asking a lot of a player.
Yeah, and some of them are just worthless.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, verdict time.
Yep.
Andy, do you want to start off with your picks?
Yeah, sure. For my buy, I'm going to take Pugsy, just because I rented that one quite a bit when I was a kid. I know I rented at least twice, so it kind of has a nostalgia factor to me. But also, like, coming back to it, it's like, okay, they were doing some impressive stuff on an old Sega game, and they kind of pulled it off for the most part. So I could see myself playing that even more, because the puzzles do get a little bit better. I mean, it's still like traversing the whole area to find the certain items that you need, but it's still kind of like that Chips challenge, like, hey, I need this key to get to this key and all that stuff. So I kind of like those games, but yeah, I think I'll take that for my buy. For my rent, I'm going to go with Death Duel, because I don't know, overall, like, we played it up there. I had a good amount of time just laughing, having fun with it, but overall, it's kind of a frustrating game. But I think if you put more time into it and kind of master, like, exactly, like, kind of like what you said, like, you can't just play Monster Hunter for an hour and expect to get the whole sense of, you know, progression out of that, where this is probably like a precursor to that game. So I don't know. I kind of like that idea, but I don't think I would probably play it again. And I'm going to burn the tick, because while it is a competent beat 'em up game, and, you know, the sprites look good, and as far as the tick goes, and, you know, the other bigger enemies, I think that's the most boring game we've played on this whole show. All the way through. Like, it's perfectly fine, like, beat 'em up style, but there's nothing to it. And I was extremely bored. And that probably says something about beat 'em up games in, you know, our era now. They're already kind of a leg behind in that regard, but when it's the bottom of the barrel of all those games, then it's a problem. But yeah, that's going to be my burn.
Nice. Justin, how about you?
Yeah, mine are all probably going to be pretty similar here. So my buy is actually going to be Pugsy. I kind of enjoyed this one, other than the issues with the stacking of stuff and just the general issue with carrying stuff, moving it around. But the overall game was actually pretty fun, I thought. So that one's going to be my buy. My rent is going to be Death Duel. Just mainly because I feel like it had a lot of potential. It was kind of a very frustrating game. And like I said, I played it for, I don't know, 40 minutes maybe. And when I finally got through that second boss or enemy, that's when I felt like I had enough done on it. And it was fun. I feel like you need way too much time to invest into it. And I don't really want to do that. But that would be my rent. My burn is going to be the Tick. I feel like I didn't really like this game all that much. I felt like it played all right and stuff. The enemies is just, like Andy said, it was really repetitive. You get the same 3 enemies that keep coming on the screen. You get the one with swords, the one with the throwing star, and I don't know what the other one was, I don't know. It just wasn't that much fun for me, so I'm going to burn that one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess unsurprisingly, I'm kind of shocked at this one that we're all kind of lining up here. But yeah, for the same, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I liked Pugsy, actually. It was weird. It's got some problems, but I could totally sit down with that game for a few hours and enjoy myself. Death Duel, of course, like we've been saying, I think there is another layer there. You look at Death Duel like you look at like a Punch-Out or something. Like, I'm not going to sit down and play that game all the time, so it's a perfect rental. But every once in a while, I'm going to try and progress as far as I can, and that's kind of where that game sits for me. So it makes a perfect rental game. And yeah, the Tick is the most generic, bland beat 'em up I've played in quite some time. I mean, it's just repetitive, mindless button mashing, which a lot of beat 'em ups are, but most beat 'em ups have more strategy and depth than this. The only redeeming factor for it for me was like the nostalgia I had for the character itself. But just like in real life, if you find a Tick, you torch that thing, and I'm torching the Tick with the Genesis. Sadly, it was the game that I thought was going to take the top of this list for me, but it is a disappointment.
And how do you ruin a jump kick in a beat 'em up game?
Exactly. Like, that was my biggest issue.
Yeah, that's the go-to. That was like the first thing I tried.
Like,
so bad.
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the Turtles games are, about perfect as far as for beat 'em up and what I would actually like.
Oh, yeah.
And I was really hoping that this would be something like that, but no.
No.
Your comparison, though, for Death Duel to Punch-Out, like that actually...
Yeah.
I agree with that. Like, you have to learn each fighter in Punch-Out and figure out how to beat them. Yeah. Same concept here.
It's a little more broke than Punch-Out, but yeah, it's it would line up as far as like the way you would approach that game. It wouldn't be like, I'm going to sit down all day and play this, but every once in a while I would learn. I'd know how to take on the next opponent, and on the right day I might get my timing down and it would work out.
And there are more nipples in Punch-Out than Death Duel.
Oh.
Just
let's go back and play some more Punch-Out.
They're just on the male variety, so.
Oh, I'm definitely going to go back and play more Punch-Out. Yeah. Let me find my copy of Punch-Out. I'll be right back, guys. All right, so we are through Buy, Rent, Burn. Let's move on to the meat of the podcast here and just talk about what's going on in the world, what's new with gaming or whatever else. One topic I'd like to dive into right away is an email I got. I think I shared this with you guys a couple days ago. I got a notification from Sony and the PlayStation Network that they are going to discontinue free games for the service. The monthly free games will be discontinued on the PS3 and Vita as of March of 2019. PS4 free games will, of course, continue, but I don't know. It was kind of an interesting piece of news for me because, obviously brand new, retail PS3 and Vita games are harder to find. I mean, they're definitely becoming legacy systems, but there's still going to be a good number of people supporting those consoles in various regions. and that those are their main systems. So to hear that as of a year from now, those games are not going to be offered in a monthly service, it's kind of a little bit of a bummer, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it had to come at some point, though. The PS3, most people that have a job or that game regularly would
Whoa, now
that's
slightly offensive.
I mean, if you haven't upgraded, it's time to, damn it.
All you deadbeats, you keep your PS3s.
No, I'm saying the kids that don't have a job and their parents won't buy it for them. I can understand that,
but also have PS Plus.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, though.
I mean, it's been out, what? How long has PS4 been out? 4 years? 5 years? 4 years?
Yeah, we're coming up on...
Yeah, 14, I think it came out. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to miss this whole system if you don't hurry up.
That's true. I think the Vita one for me was like, there are still like, especially in other regions, like some very hardcore supporters of the Vita yet. And like, it was nice to get that little bit of a lifeline for the Vita. I will say, me personally, like I have the Vita TV. I don't have the Vita itself. And more often than not, you're presented like the same game across Vita or PS4, and you had to choose which one you were going to download. And I always went for PS4 rather than having it in my Vita library. So it didn't affect me too much, but that's kind of a bummer to lose the Vita. I would agree though, like the PS3. Yeah, I put those games in my download cart, but I seldom installed them. But I mean, it is just kind of like, it is a piece of the thing I'm paying for, right? Like the free games, it was a nice perk to get, 6 new games essentially each month across all the systems I own. So it's going to be kind of a bummer to lose some of that. But I mean, like you said, it should surprise, I suppose, no one that this is finally coming. And actually, it's probably a nicer notice that you're getting it a year out instead of like 3 months before.
Right. And it could have been, hey, we're ending it next month. Sorry.
Right.
But I don't know. I feel like the PS3 games that they were giving away anyways weren't all that great. Like,
hey, now they gave away Mighty Number 9 this month. How dare you? It's Metacritic's best game of all time.
That system was garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same could be said for Vita. I mean, the cross-buy stuff with the PS4, like you said, is pretty good, but like the Vita exclusive stuff was generally not that great on the PS Plus. At least for a few years. I just love like all the people that ever since Sony actually quit making their own Vita games, everybody's like, oh, the Vita's dead. And you have all those supporters like, what are you talking about? No, the Vita's not dead. What are you talking about? You people are crazy. And now those people, like, once you tell them like, hey, they're not even doing PS Plus anymore, they're like, okay, it's dead.
Right. Yeah, there was definitely like that range where they were doing like the occasional PSP like quality, backwards compatible game for the Vita, and there was like, oh, okay, this is great. I'll get this God of War game. Like that's a great free monthly game. But yeah, you're right. It was mostly hot indie trash. I mean, it was getting not great anymore.
Yeah,
I'm not saying like, all the PS4 games are amazing either, but they've at least given out some quality titles lately. Even not too long ago they gave away Phantom Pain. This month they're giving away Bloodborne.
And Ratchet and Clank. Like, this is a phenomenal month. Those are both great games, yeah.
I didn't see Ratchet and Clank on there. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and that's like maybe the silver lining here is like I'm hoping by like kind of stopping the bleeding on the PS3 and the Vita, like maybe we'll get 2 like solid retail releases each month for PS4, which, that's where my focus is now as a gamer anyway. So, I mean, I'm all for that if that'll happen. Because generally it tends to be like, one full game and then like an indie game, which is fine. But if I can get like 2 full games plus maybe an indie game on the PS4 each month, yeah, that's great.
That's a plus for sure.
Yeah, I had heard a couple people talking about how great that one last month was too.
Mac?
Rhyme or something?
Yeah, I've heard that's good.
I do want to play that one yet. Yeah.
You know what's sad is the only one I have played from last month is Knack. Or at least I let my kid play it. But, yeah. Yeah,
I'm gonna
I
that
don't
one.
do that.
Yeah, I purchased it because I get all the free games, but I don't ever download them hardly.
Yeah. That's a good platformer for kids, but yeah.
You guys can come back at me when you pay $60 on launch day for Knack and play through it.
You poor sucker. Did you really?
No, my wife did, but I watched.
Oh, no.
I watched a lot of it.
And you're still married?
Yes.
Reason for divorce? Knack.
Then they made a Knack 2.
That nobody cared about. I've heard that's a much better game, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I will if I find it in the bargain bin, which I will. For like $5, I'll buy it. So, yeah.
Yep. You can be Ice Knack in Knack 2. You just knack with a bunch of ice crystals.
Oh, you can be Ice Knack and Knack 1 if you get far enough.
Really? I don't remember
I've totally
that.
been Ice Knack.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm like with the one of 5 people who've progressed far enough in that game to get to Ice Knack.
You get the achievement at 0.00%.
You know what's funny is like I was playing with my kid for a while, and I think I came upstairs to like cook lunch or something for them, and my kids run upstairs like all excited, like Dad, you have to come see this. I go downstairs and it's Ice Knack. I was like, huh, like yeah, this is worth running upstairs and getting me for. But
You don't understand. If you played through all that game until that point, Ice Knack is a big deal.
yeah, they were just so excited. They're like, you have to do it fast, otherwise it melts. I'm like, okay, that's cool. A melting power up system. This is great.
And then Knack gets hungry and thirsty, and you have to refill his bars.
Knack Survive coming next year.
A long time there, I was downloading every PS3 game, and then I didn't boot up my PS3 for like 2 years, and I'm like, I'm not even going to bother anymore, even like downloading them or putting them in my cart even, you know? But
wow, you don't even add them to the cart. That's hardcore.
yeah.
I do just because I like to see that I saved $120 some.
Right.
Yes.
I'm
Discounts.
bargain shopper. We should get on Extreme Couponers. We'll just like pull up our PSN account. Look.
Speaking of that, the free games, I've been playing Trials of the Blood Dragon, which is free on Xbox this month. Have you guys ever seen anything of what that is?
Is this a Trials spinoff or is this?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, it's mostly Trials. It's really weird. So like Far Cry 3 had like an expansion called Blood Dragon.
The Blood Dragon. Yeah, so this ties into that?
Yeah, it's like a mix between that world and a Trials game. So like
So they made an expansion that ties into another game's expansion.
pretty much. It's kind of
It's kind
crazy.
of bizarre.
Like it's Trials, but you're like shooting a gun while you're doing Trials too.
What?
Yeah, and there's like guys standing around and you're doing all the jumps like you do in a regular Trials game, but you're like shooting guns at them. So they're out of the way, you know? And there's like a platforming section and, you know, you drive a tank and the story
What?
is like really crazy, like overly 80s, almost to a fault, I guess. But I don't know. It seems like it'd be pretty short.
Is it broken up like Trials or is it like one ongoing like mission? There's not like individual races?
Yeah, it's different levels for sure. But there's like some levels
okay.
where like you're playing the other girl and you're like, you can tell it's the Trials system, but you're like walking around, you know, and platforming kind of. So it's crazy.
So you're not on a bike.
On most levels, you are a bike doing the normal Trials stuff, but also you can shoot a gun whenever you want on the bike too.
Okay, I need to play this immediately.
Yeah, I thought it would just be like, oh, it's just like Trials but 80s, but like no, it's kind of crazy. Like you're like warriors in Vietnam War #4, and like it's really crazy.
No, that sounds awesome though. I love Trials and like I always wanted to try like the Blood Dragon DLC, but just never picked it up. So yeah, I might have to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and like some levels you're driving a tank, and some of it's like an RC car, and it's all the Trials engine, but it's crazy what they pumped out of it.
It's definitely interesting.
Nice. I've been playing a fair amount of the Switch, and I've been playing. They ported the all-time best like tabletop barcade game ever, Spot the Difference, to the Switch. So you know that game when you're in like bars and like you put a quarter in and there's two pictures and you have to like touch the different spots to like see what's different between the two photos? It's that.
But most of them are X-rated, aren't they?
Well, yeah, there is that version. Sadly, I don't know why Nintendo hasn't greenlit that on the Switch yet. But this is the kids and adults friendly version. I don't know, and like before my wife and I had kids and stuff, when we'd actually get to go out at night, we would like one of like our favorite pastimes was to just like sit at the bar and like have a couple drinks and play that, and then we got really good at it, and we would just go around town like everywhere that had a machine, and we'd always get like the highest score we could, which in a lot of cases was the top score. So it'd be Wallen's Rule. So then we'd go all over town, and like all these machines had like Wallen's Rule all over the leaderboard, which is really lame. But we had a good time with it. So basically, when I saw this on the Switch, I was like, yes, I must have this. Please take my money. Luckily, it was only $10, but the beauty of it is you can actually do the touchscreen on it with the Switch undocked. I assume you'd do like a cursor sort of setting if it's docked, which would not be as fun. But yeah, it was totally good. My wife and I have been sitting down and playing it. You know, hour here, hour there. It's that game, but on Switch. So.
Do you use the same username or high score?
I do, yes. My leaderboard is filled up. Like all 10 slots are Wallen's Rule right now. So. And I don't want to brag, but according to my Switch, we're pretty good. So,
plus, you're probably the only person that has that game in Fargo Moorhead, so you're probably the best.
Or in North America. Yeah. I am the one and only guy who downloaded that.
This really speaks to the quality of the eShop, I have to say.
Yeah. So that was that's been my gaming as of late. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess mainly. Well, I've been pretty much still playing Fortnite, but I did recently with this sale that we got going on PlayStation. I picked up Titanfall 2, so I'll be playing that some too. But a couple of games that I'm actually really interested in that are coming out here in the near future. We got Sea of Thieves, which we've talked about before. That's actually coming out the 20th. And that's going to be coming up here pretty quick. So I'm pretty excited to play that one when that actually comes out. But the game that I actually just recently found out about and am very interested in checking this one out. It's called A Way Out. And it's made by the same guy that created Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. I guess EA created a publisher, or not, well, they created a developer studio, I suppose, Hazelight. So this one I'm pretty interested in. It's kind of a different concept than a lot of games I've ever seen. It's more focused on couch co-op or online co-op. That's the only way you can play it, is you have to have two people. One person plays one character, the other plays the other character, and they're both on screen at the same time, split screen. So one person could be in a cutscene, the other person could be walking around playing their story, and basically they're trying to break out of prison and survive.
Yeah, and it's all real time, right? Yeah.
So it's like a prison break scenario, but you need a buddy to do it, huh?
Yeah. I don't know a whole lot because I've only seen a handful of trailers on it, but it looks pretty amazing. There was an interview with like Joseph or something, the guy that created it, I think.
Yeah, you said it was the same guy who did Brothers, right? A Tale of Two Sons. Yep. Which that game alone is like one of my favorite gaming experiences like ever. I've played through that game multiple times at this point. It's, I mean, excellent. If they can pull off that same level of like inter-character like dependency, but like bring in another person, like that's going to be pretty awesome.
Well, that's what his goal was, because he said that he loved the way Brothers played, but he just wanted to get that two-player aspect into it and have the same feel.
Right.
But where you guys actually had to like communicate and work together to achieve, I guess, is kind of what he was saying.
And what they probably didn't take into account was stupid kids on the internet being obnoxious and just trolling you, because I'm sure that will happen. This sounds like a game that will be excellent, but you can't just drop into a match, you know?
You won't be able to. You have to know the other person. Like,
oh, really? It forces you to have somebody on your friends list?
Well, you have to you can't join a random person. Like you'd have to know them.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like an invite system. There's no like lobby matchmaking.
Yeah, no. From what it sounded like, it's co-op, so you have to know the person that's joining you,
Right. Well, that makes sense.
or couch co-op. He said that he wanted it mainly couch co-op, but today's day and age, you can't do that really.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's kind of nice that they have both options because, yeah, definitely for, working adults and finding the time to like sit down on a couch with somebody is tough. But if you can do it through the power of the interwebs, yeah.
I hope they can pull off the same type of feeling and atmosphere because, like, Brothers, like, the controls of that game made it, like, play into the story, like, 100%. Like, I've never played a game that the controls were so integral into the story. And once you separate it into two different controllers, you kind of lose that aspect a little bit. So hopefully they can, just like the split screen and it's all happening at the same time. I imagine there's some cool stuff that you can do that way too. So hopefully they go that route.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they can tell a story that's like just as moving without, having much in the way of, story itself. If you can just like progress the story through environments and like on-screen emotion. Yeah, I'd love to see what that's going to do.
Well,
I'm pretty pumped.
And that guy, that Joseph, he came from movies, I believe. Like he was a movie maker.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brothers was his first.
He was talking about that too because he wanted it to, where you actually had, connected to the character you're playing. That's where he got the movie aspect from, I guess.
Sure.
I think it's like a $30 game too.
That's about right. That's what Brothers was. So that's worth trying.
Yeah. So it's a pretty good deal.
So when is this coming out?
March 23rd. So it's 3 weeks away.
Is it PS4, Xbox, PC, or what?
Yeah, all of them. PS4, okay. Xbox, and PC. But that one I'm really excited for. Check it out.
Yeah, since we're talking about movies, I don't know, did anyone else see the movie-related news as far as gaming went? They've recently talked about how we're going to get a new Super Mario Brothers movie. It's going to be animated, which is not the news I'm referring to, but they've announced that Sega and Sonic are working on a brand new Sonic movie. And the best part is, people, it's going to be live action and CGI. So that means we can get that on-screen, real-life bestiality kiss that is the pinnacle of perfection from Sonic 06. It's going to be so much better when the woman's not animated too, and she's a real person kissing a hedgehog on screen.
I love watching girls kiss like green screened items that are inanimate. Like, what are they doing? Like, I mean, this is perfect. Like, it falls in line. Like, it's almost like the joke, right?
Yeah.
Like the Sonic Twitter has become so self-aware that I feel like they've completely like taken it to a step way too far, that they're actually like spending millions of dollars making the joke and not telling anybody.
Yeah. I just like it's so rare that you get a live action and CGI crossed kids movie that is successful. Like Alvin and the Chipmunks was kind of the rare exception. But I mean, most of the time these things don't.
Well, even Roger Rabbit wasn't that
right.
Popular, I guess.
And the other thing too is like the Sonic Boom show that's on Cartoon Network right now. That's a good cartoon. Like my kids watch it all the time. It's funny. Like it's a good Sonic thing. Like why not just leap off of that because kids already know it and just make a full-length movie out of it? Like that's at least going to sell some like DVD copies or make some money on Netflix or Redbox. Like why go I can't understand in what world we would need to cross live action and Sonic. Like it makes no sense.
No. I mean, kids are not that interested in seeing live action stuff. They see it and they're just like bored after a while. So Sonic would have to be in there 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I can't
That's-
wait for the shit game that's going to come out to tie into it. It's going to be phenomenal, I'm sure.
It's a dating sim. FMV dating sim with Sonic.
It'll be an AR game. It'll be horrible.
Oh man.
So yeah, Sonic, a movie. That's the thing. Can't wait. 2019, it's coming, folks.
You know, if I knew all the information I do now, and I was still in the schoolyard fighting with all the guys like saying, no, Genesis is better, Sonic's better than Mario. And I saw all this coming, no way.
Yeah. It's been a rough 20 years for Sonic at this point.
Yeah.
Almost.
Every step forward is 2 steps back, it seems like.
Yeah.
I've been in a weird, I don't know how this happened. It was just completely coincidence. But like pretty much all media that I've been taking in has to be of the underwater variety.
Go on.
Where a while
You're
ago,
underwater, or the media is based out of underwater stuff?
yeah, the media is. So like
Okay.
a while ago, we started putting on Blue Planet, which is like Planet Earth, but it's all about like fish and stuff.
Sure.
So we've been watching that here and there. And then I downloaded a game on Xbox called Subnautica, which is kind of a survival game, but it's all underwater. So like you're using submarines and you're swimming around collecting all the stuff to build, area. It's kind of Minecrafty a little bit, not so much on the building so much, but more survival, I guess. And then our movie that we picked for David Crane's Amazing Movie Time ties into this
Also,
as well.
I'm sorry, everyone. Go on.
So yeah, it's been a lot of underwater, just like I'm sitting, like I wake up in the morning, go in the shower, and I'm thinking about fish, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what's going on here? Swimming around.
I wake up in my bed and I'm all wet. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
Do you have a waterbed? No. Yeah. Well, I mean, it could be worse, right? At least you're not like constantly. I went through a period of my life where like everything I read and watched movie wise was zombie stuff. So like all I could think about when I would sleep at night, I'd have like these horrific zombie nightmares of like zombies chasing me across a bridge, and like it just went on loop. And I was like, this is where you need to break the habit. So you're
Yeah.
lucky in that it's just fish and water. I mean, could be worse.
I've just never had things line up so coincidentally like that before, where it's not like something like I'm going out to be like, oh yeah, I really want to go after this,
Your
And just
life is just naturally guiding you towards.
Yes. Like I'm like looking up scuba lessons at this point, and
Well, luckily, you live conveniently close to a lake.
yeah.
Then you're gonna start. You're gonna watch that episode of Metalocalypse on loop where they're making like the Mermaider.
The Mermaider.
Yeah, the Mermaider album, all recorded underwater. It's a death metal album for fish. Fish don't have a lot of good metal music. That show's great.
Yeah.
So I don't have any like other this whole fish topic. I don't know how to segue out of this. So
Hey, speaking of the Oscars, the Shape of Water won a Best Picture about having sex with a fish.
No, all I can think of is that Kanye West South Park joke. You ever see that
Fish
episode where it's
sticks,
just like, do you like fish sticks? Yeah, you're a gay fish. It's like the whole episode. It's like 30 minutes of that dumb joke. Oh gosh. So I kind of wanted to go on like a mini rant here of sorts. Not a rant so much, but just something that's been growing as like an annoyance for me with gaming and the Switch. Moreover, is that I'm getting really annoyed that all of these fantastic Wii U games are coming out on Switch, and now everyone gives a crap.
Yeah.
Like I'm sorry, the Wii U was horribly marketed but it had some fantastic games that people could have readily picked up and played through, and they're largely unaltered. Moving over to the Switch, it's just like the whole legacy of this, like the Wii U, is getting just completely steamrolled because they're just gutting it, almost pretending it didn't happen, and like pushing it over to the Switch. And I don't, as someone who, I mean, I admit like the Wii U is not a successful console, but I genuinely enjoyed the system. Like it kind of irks me a little bit. I know it shouldn't, but it's a trend I'm not liking with the current state of the Switch and Nintendo. And just, for one thing, if you were a supportive Nintendo fan through the Wii U, like I'm like my biggest releases are just things that I've already bought. Like, what's the incentive there for me? There isn't any, other than, oh, I can carry it on the go. Well, that's great. Well, I've already sunk 50 hours into this game. I don't want to do that. Like, it doesn't matter, you know?
Yeah.
And then everybody else just talks about these games like, oh, this is the best. Like Mario Kart won some award, like the DICE Award, like Best Racer of the Year. Like, that came out 3 freaking years ago. How does it get an award?
It added battle mode. Maybe battle mode is the award-winning
segment.
No, not really.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm kind of bitter against that as well, but that's more so that like I'm a Wii U collector, so now it's like I feel like it's taking the shine away from everything. You know, like like you said, it's taking the best things of that console and just kind of be like, well, now it's on Switch, and there's like one extra thing that makes it the definitive version, you know, on the Switch.
Right.
So it's starting to get to the point where there's not many reasons to be like, okay, I want the Wii U and these games, you know?
Right. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the heavy hitters, like even some of the sleeper hits, like I look at Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which was a fantastic game, especially in the year that it came out. And like that's even getting moved. Like that, I did not expect that to get ported over. You know, Bayonetta and Bayonetta 2 just got a re-release, which I'm sorry, like Bayonetta 2 was like probably the shining jewel of the Wii U collection, or like its releases in general. And don't get me wrong, like I'm super glad that millions and millions more people are going to play these games, but I don't know. I feel like Nintendo's actively trying to sweep what they consider a mistake. Well, okay, not they, like everyone considers a mistake under the rug, because it was a colossal like misstep for them as a console. But I don't know. I just feel like that's a disservice to like a little bit of their legacy and like to their diehard fans who were there regardless.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of the mind, and I think a lot of people are, that like I don't buy a Nintendo system to have it be my main gaming console. I mean, I haven't in generations now. It's just not where they're at. I buy Nintendo consoles to get the 10 or so best experiences I'm going to get of that gaming generation, which is going to be their first party exclusives. So I hope they don't just continue with this and like use it to pad out what becomes like a weak lineup of first party titles over the next few years. And I realize like I sound like a moron saying that when, you know, we just had, you know, Mario Odyssey come out. I don't throw Breath of the Wild into that, because that again is still a Wii U game. But I mean, obviously they're putting work into good first party originals, but I don't know. I'm probably looking at it cynically, in that I'm looking at it as them just kind of trying to, you know, cover up their blemish. But I mean, also, I mean, there's a positive to people who, let's be honest, like most of the people on the planet didn't get into these games on the Wii U, but I don't know. It's just frustrating as someone who like loved that console, even when it wasn't the cool thing to have. And now it's like, oh, cool, I have your new console that everybody else loves, and you're just selling me the same shit.
Yeah. Meanwhile, it's like the greatest thing to them. And it's like, well, this has been my Nintendo life for 3-4 years now, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason that like 90% of my Wii U purchase or my Switch purchases have been indie games, because all the stuff that everyone else is clamoring for, I have.
Yeah.
You know,
pretty much.
And you know, and I'm not complaining, because like it's still working out and I'm still playing the Switch a lot. It's just like I wish I could be excited like you, but been there, done that.
Right. And it's just not enough to get you the next thing either. It's always just like one little bit. Like, I love Donkey Kong, but Funky Kong is not going to make me buy that game again either, So I think they are losing some total sales off of that, but probably not much.
Yeah. Well, and like that's the thing too is like you brought up a good point with Mario Kart and like the battle mode, but like I looked at Mario Kart Deluxe and I was like, well, I get all the DLCs, so maybe it's worth it. And I just like sitting there one day playing Mario Kart 8 with my kids on the Wii U, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna spend the $15 and get all these extra maps and save myself another $40 because why not?
Yep.
Like I don't need it for the Switch.
Yep.
But Nintendo and Switch rant aside, please send all your hate mail. Attention, Ryan, you dumb bastard, to Weekend Rental Podcast at gmail.com. We will read them on the next show.
Yeah. Overall, I mean, I think we both can agree that it's better that it's more accessible to everybody. I mean, it's not like like at this point, the Switch is just as cheap as the Wii U is almost. Like if you're going to get the game. So like, yeah.
And there's no argument that it is the superior system. I mean, that of course it is. Yes.
Nobody's going to recommend you to get the Wii U instead of the Switch,
Yeah, I don't see a whole lot of "is the Wii U still worth it" in 2018 videos on YouTube.
Other than Justin, who bought a Wii U instead of a Switch this year.
I mean, it was pretty good price.
Yeah,
it was a good deal.
Yeah.
You will never. I mean, at the price that you got that Wii U for, like that, they will never get that cheap because the supply is not. I mean, yeah, you could already like double your money on it, so you'd be stupid not to buy that thing.
Yeah.
No, like as what you guys are talking about there, from somebody that really didn't have an interest in either of these consoles. Like I kind of want to get a Switch, I guess, but I don't really care. I can see why they're doing it because the Switch is the better selling console, so they want to get the games that everyone, 8 people that played it on the Wii U liked. They want to get them onto the Switch so those people can enjoy it. I think it makes sense, but at the same time, it's kind of a shitty move because then the Switch isn't getting the content that they should be getting to. Like, I completely understand what you guys are saying there. It just sucks.
And the thing is it's like to the extent that it's happening, it's sort of unprecedented for Nintendo. I mean, they've done this before with like re-releasing like the Mario Advance line, but to just sort of take a whole swap against your previous generation and just push it on the next thing is a little unusual.
You guys watching The Walking Dead?
Sadly, I am not.
No, I haven't even seen last season.
Oh, okay.
I got some information spoiled for me though, but I don't want to talk about it because I'm already mad that I got it spoiled for me.
It didn't. I suppose no. Netflix doesn't have the.
Not yet. It'll be August, I suppose, before they're out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I contemplated buying like the season pass or whatever, but it was like $40. I was like, I don't know if I need to see it now that bad.
Yeah.
Good season so far though?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty good. The first it's been 2 weeks now, I suppose it's been on. The first one, so their first episode back, they typically do an hour and a half.
Yep.
Personally, I felt like it should have been a half hour.
See, isn't that the problem? They always draw them out. Yeah.
Like I guess it had to be done the way they did it because it gave a lot of story and stuff like that. I don't really want to wreck anything for you, but it gave a lot of story, so it makes sense why they did it that way. I wasn't hit emotionally by it, I guess, so it didn't. It could have been shorter.
Yeah, I always kind of feel like those longer episodes are just like they're never needed to me. And then the other thing too, like besides them drawing out the actual episode itself unnecessarily, is they like double down on the ad breaks. So it's like, oh, I'm glad we got to come back for 2 minutes and went to 5 minutes of commercials and then 30 seconds of stay tuned for the Talking Dead. I'm like, yeah, I'm aware that you do the Talking Dead. I don't need to hear it 8 times through this episode. Thank you. Right? Yeah. So that's like where I'm kind of, because I've kept current on The Walking Dead up to this season, like watching them live. So I'm kind of looking forward to just waiting and getting them all on Netflix so I can avoid some of that crap and just plow through it in a weekend. But
right. No, it's definitely like a lot of people I've talked to at work, they're talking about how they're done with it. And they don't want to watch it anymore. It's old and boring. But I mean, it's still interesting. Like adding, well, like I said, I don't want to wreck it, but character changes, I suppose.
Yeah, I'll keep watching it until they remove Rick. Like once Rick's not a character, I think I'm probably not invested anymore. But they did say they want to keep the show going for 20 more years, so I guess everyone's going to have to leave eventually.
The people that work at Destiny in on this at all? Or what?
Yeah. This is our 20-year plan.
Plan? They don't even plan 6 months ahead.
Right.
Yeah, and then I guess State of Decay 2, we've talked about this prior in earlier episode. Probably a couple of them. This is another game that I've been really, impatiently waiting for. So much that I actually forgot that they were making it. And then...
Wait a minute.
And then I had actually seen that they announced a release date finally. Well, they had said 2018 for how long now, but they actually announced a release date, and that's May 22nd, tentatively.
Wow. Oh, wow.
So, kind of exciting. Within the next 2 months here, there's a handful of games that I'm actually interested in.
Was that exclusive to Xbox One? And
Yeah,
PC?
Xbox One and PC.
It's coming on Game Pass, right?
Yep, that one, Sea of Thieves are both going to be on Game
That's
Pass.
worth it for those two, then.
Nice. And then we'll
So
get
those two
Crackdown.
alone,
Yeah.
Crackdown in 4 years.
Then it comes out.
But yeah, those two alone, Game Pass, honestly might be worth it just for those two alone as of right now for me. But
Yeah, I'll probably buy it to play State of Decay rather than just buy State of Decay. I saw you threw that message up on the $30 price point too on Facebook. And until I had read that, I was like, oh yeah, that is coming out. I was in the same boat as you. I just kind of, yeah.
oh yeah, when I tagged on Facebook,
Yeah.
yeah, I had seen it today. I actually looked at my phone because a notification went off, and it was that guy from Xbox, Major Nelson, or whatever.
Mhm.
He tweeted out about it, so I looked it up a little bit and seen that it had the release date tentatively for the 22nd. So hopefully that doesn't change.
Yeah.
But a pretty good price point. I think the other one was about the same, so it makes sense. But this one's it's supposed to be a bigger map, and
Multiplayer too, you said, right? Co-op finally.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Yep.
that's what you need in that sort of game. So yeah, I would definitely be excited to jump on there and do some zombie survival.
yeah, hopefully it plays similar to the first one at least, because the first one, the gameplay wise, it felt great. There was a few mechanics that I suppose they could fix, but for the most part, it's better than most other survival games I've played compared to Dying Light, Dead Island.
Yeah,
Dying Light actually played pretty good.
Yeah,
But-
I almost bought Dying Light again because it was on the developer's sale or publisher's sale.
It was
Extra.
$13 or something.
Yeah, and it was the full thing, but I was like, I would play through that again.
Okay, moving on to the Failbag, where we answer 20-year-old questions from video game magazines as if they were addressed to us. And we give advice back to the person that asked the question. So hopefully then, after all these years, they finally have the answer to their question, the true answer. So, starting off here, I am in the official Sega Dreamcast magazine.
They had one of those?
Yeah, it didn't last too long. Just
Okay.
like the Dreamcast. This is issue number 2. Glenn asks, first off, I would like to say I just bought your first magazine yesterday and I love it. Keep up the good work. I also have a question. I am a huge RPG fan and I love all of Square's games. Will Square make any future RPGs for the Dreamcast? Also, I've heard a rumor that Konami is making a sequel to Metal Gear Solid for the Dreamcast. Is that true?
No.
So, Glenn, how do you feel about Sega games and some Capcom games? Because that's about all you're going to get.
This just reminds me like this time I went into before Software Etc. merged up with GameStop. Like I was going in to buy like some PlayStation game back in the day. Like I go up to the counter to pay for it, and then the guy at the counter is like, "Hey, you like Resident Evil?" I'm like, "Yeah, I like Resident Evil, of course." It's like, "Well, you better buy a Dreamcast because Resident Evil is now exclusive to the Dreamcast." I'm like, "Okay," and it was for all of like I don't know 5 minutes.
The Code Veronica one, yeah.
Yeah, like it's all going. Capcom's going all. I mean, there was so much speculation. Like he's obviously not like speculating, but I feel like there was almost that like sense of there could be like a lot of heavy hitter exclusives on the Dreamcast, and then it just all fizzled with like that looming threat of the PS2.
Yeah.
So I think like in an alternate universe, like totally we could have gotten Final Fantasy games on, a Dreamcast and some of those sequels, but it just didn't pan out that way. Plus that, I mean, man, Final Fantasy would have been such a huge leap to get onto a Sega system. I mean, those have never that didn't exist. Metal Gear I could see being in the Dreamcast.
That Metal Gear would have looked amazing on the Dreamcast.
Actually, you know what? A sliver of hope for this guy. You can play Metal Gear Solid on yeah, you can get an up-res version. There's this totally legal software called Bleemcast that will not be shut down for any reason that allows you to do that. So there you go. We helped.
Yep. Only one game, though. That's the only... You have to buy the Bleem just for that one game.
And then you can also buy the Bleem for... Was it Gran Turismo 2 was the only other one?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Still an amazing technical marvel that happened, but yeah. So I guess in a way, yes, you're going to get Metal Gear on your Dreamcast.
I'm just confused by this guy. Like this... Like day one, you should know that the Dreamcast probably isn't your machine if you're big on Squaresoft and Konami. Like they didn't support Sega before that all that much. Not in those, end of life days at least.
But I suppose if he was a big RPG buff, he was like, yes, Phantasy Star, and then maybe that's what got him into the console. And maybe I'll also get these other games, but yeah, not so much.
Yeah, just never happened.
No.
Okay, Timothy from Newfield, New York says, last summer I purchased a Sega Genesis. The real reason for buying it was Hardball 3. I have had a Super Nintendo since Christmas of 93, and Hardball 3 was only out on Genesis, so I bought one. Now it's coming out on Super NES, and it has the MLB license. And the Genesis one doesn't. The point I'm making is if the games aren't made by Sega or Nintendo, they will come out on both systems. Another point is that the game on the Super NES costs more, even if it's the same game. For instance, Tecmo Super Bowl on the Super NES cost $74.99, and the same game for the Genesis cost $69.99. Only a $5 difference, but it adds up after a while. The Super NES game is better anyway, graphics-wise. The same with NBA Jam. With the exception of Mortal Kombat, the games on Super NES are better. Only people with both systems can judge this, like myself.
Oh, okay, he's an elitist, is he?
Oh yeah, on the bus.
I look down on you non-dual console owning peons.
Yep. On the bus, I hear little kids say they want a Genesis for Christmas or their birthday, but they're not getting the truth from advertisements. I have to congratulate Sega on their advertising with the way they can totally deceive people, but that's what they're supposed to do. I have just one more question. Why aren't all the games released on the same day for each system, like Bill Walsh College Football or NBA Showdown 94?
God.
Both of these games were released on the Genesis first. Why?
I have a question. Why are you buying consoles to play sports games? Who does this?
I do.
You don't count.
I like this guy.
Well, it's confusing to me because, I mean, he's like complete elitist that says, "Oh, Super NES is the best for obviously." And he's like, "There's a lot of truth to that, but the one case it's not is sports games, which seems like
Right.
what he's all into." So
Well, and like, so like all these questions he's asking are just like the most boring, like ass back business questions, right? I mean, the difference is in like those are the cost of the components and the cost of the licensing fees.
yeah, Nintendo
Obviously,
$5
things
more for licensing.
right is flat out more. Why do some games come out on some systems first and late? Because back in that day, a lot of studios just didn't have the resources to put out multiple console launches and develop them, publish, at the same time. So a lot of times they would release on one console, hand off to somebody else to publish on another. I mean, that's just the way it worked. I just like my whole mind is blown that, well, one, that this guy is like so judgmental about the fact that only frickin' multiple console owning elitists could judge any such cross-platform gaming. And then also that he's looking down on people while buying every sports game that comes out for whatever console he owns. I hope that some kid on the playground with an AES just like kicked dirt in this kid's face. It was like, screw you. You're beneath me.
If let's be honest, kids with AESs didn't go to school. They were privately tutored. So
right, that's right. They probably don't even have jobs. They got that that inheritance from mom and pop. Gosh, yeah. This whole thing blows my mind because like I don't remember any, like everyone had a sports game. Everyone played a sports game back then. But I don't recall a single person who only bought sports games and was like, that was their lifeblood. I mean, especially for Hardball 3. Are you kidding me? Like, that is not even a notable baseball series.
No. And that, like, if you're that into sports, like,
just go out and play them.
Yeah, you were into the EA games, and that's what the Genesis actually did okay at. So
right. Yeah.
So yeah, let's go on the other side of the fence to a Sega fanboy here. Carl from Bergenfield, New Jersey says,
"Can you do that in a Rick Grimes voice?"
Carl.
Say it like a zombie's attacking him. Like his life depends on you yelling Carl in a way that is so meaningful.
Here's my impression of Rick when Carl's in trouble. So, sorry, he's not here.
That was terrible.
The joke is he's not there for Carl.
I get it.
Okay, I know that.
Oh, that was good. All right, I'll let you read. I will let you read this thing and get off the Carl.
Okay. I know that Nintendo and Sega are trying to duke it out for the number one spot in the 16-bit era of the video game industry, and well, my personal feelings are that I like the Genesis better. I feel that the performance and quality of the Super NES has been over-exaggerated. Does this world really need another 16-bit system on the market? You say that Super Nintendo can produce sounds unheard of from other systems. Well, the SNES only has 8 channels of stereo sound with voice sampling, while the Genesis has a whopping 9-channel stereo sound and voice sampling. The Super NES does generate large sprites, but what's the point of having all those great, big graphics when it doesn't even have the megahertz to move them quickly? Gradius 3 was a perfect example of this atrocity. This is a serious subject to me, and I'm hoping that he won't overdo it with the Super NES reviews and continue to give the Genesis the recognition it deserves.
I think I can answer this pretty simply, and all I need to say is, "Wise from your grave."
Yeah.
End of discussion. Super Nintendo wins.
I guess 9 channels wasn't enough for that.
If it's such a serious discussion for him, I don't feel like he fully researched. Yeah.
No, this is an extremely weak argument from him saying that, 1 more channel of voice is better when clearly the Super NES sound chip was way better.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the thing with like the Genesis is like that the sound chip there, like in the hands of a talented person, could put out some amazing stuff, but more often than not, it just churned out garbled, incomprehensible, like I need to just turn the sound off soundtracks.
Yeah.
There's a certain appeal to well done Genesis sound effects and soundtracks, but that is so much more the exception than the norm. And like you said, like the sound chip was probably the one thing that really catapulted, you know, the SNES. I mean, because I mean, I don't even take like the visual thing. Like visually, like they're pretty even keel. Like you know, with a good developer. But when you put the sound chip on top of it, like that really made a lot of the games in the Super Nintendo, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. I love that this guy brought out the word megahertz like that. That is totally a word that you would use in the console wars like that, you know? Blast processing, right? It's right there with blast processing.
Now the Mode 7 sound effects are pretty good. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to this day, some of the best video game music was done on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
I mean, just kind of funny.
But, I mean, the real question is, does this world really need another 16-bit system on the market? Like, that's a valid question. Like,
that is a good question. No, but why not?
Yeah.
Especially when it's those two. They're both amazing consoles, of course.
Because it's taken up coverage in my GamePro.
I suppose that is like a fairly like time sensitive question though, right? Because for most of America, I mean, you had the 2600, then it died, and then you had like in the eyes of children anyway. I'm saying then you had the NES, and that was your video game system.
Yeah.
And then that ended, you know, so there wasn't, obviously the Master System was there. Obviously there was ColecoVision and television. Like there were, but like mainstream wise, like a lot of people didn't know, and I didn't know there were other consoles. So yeah, the fact that there were two like major competing consoles in the 16-bit era was probably the first time that, you know, the average Joe was well aware of two options at once, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's probably the first, that's the real first console war, right? Was that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Huh.
But yeah, the Super Nintendo's way better sound-wise. Stupid kid.
I don't know. Drum and bass. Pretty good on Sega.
Is that a sequel to Toe Jam and Earl?
Yeah. And finally, Israel from Perrysburg, Ohio. Lately, I've been reading your mag a little more closely and become quite interested in Atari's Jaguar. I have numerous questions about it that are burning to be answered. So far, the system sounds like the real deal. With 64 bits, great sound, and a very low $250 price tag, I'm left in awe. It sounds like its quality exceeds that of the 3DO and Philips CDI, especially price-wise. Well, that's true, but it's also not a good thing either. But
it's not how life works. The cheapest thing is usually not the best.
I mean, even if it beat the 3DO and CDI in quality, still doesn't mean it's tremendous.
Yeah, where are you setting that bar? Yeah.
The problem is, with every new system comes a few speed bumps. You see, I'm a proud and dedicated owner of a Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and a Genesis. I adore these machines because they have produced the most beautiful carts ever. The Nintendo takes credit for games such as Mega Man, Dragon Warrior, Final Fantasy, Star Tropics, and well, the list is endless. The Super Nintendo brought us Street Fighter II and Star Fox, while the Genesis endowed us with Phantasy Star 2 and top-of-the-line sports games. What I'm worried about is whether or not this young jungle beast will be enough to satisfy my hunger for quality classic carts with plenty of replay value like aforementioned games have. It is easy for others because they already have top names under their wings to support them, and if they ever fall into a creativity slump, they can always fall back on their arcade hits. The Jaguar, on the other hand, doesn't have those types of advantages. Another thing that not many people have considered yet is whether or not this will be a repetition of history. As we all know, Atari was the first big name in video games, but a couple of years later, they found themselves extremely outdated in a world of new and exciting games. Now Atari is trying to come back again. It is a crying shame that they had to choose to come back at the worst possible time. Why? Because of Nintendo's Project Reality. Not only is Nintendo trying to pull off the big VR, but let's face it, the virtual reality can't be too far around the corner.
I feel like that last part is still like something that's being said today in 2018. So
Hey, it's right around the corner.
if you're still waiting for VR to be around the corner, maybe in another 10 years.
I don't know. I put my PSVR on. I'm like, okay, the Jaguar's dead.
And let me tell you, that Project Reality for Nintendo is going to pan out super. It certainly won't be delisted from their official website as a console they released. I feel like the funny thing with this is like so much emphasis on the Jaguar just to take a plug at like how great Nintendo is. Like right at the end. It's like you did all of this just to plug Nintendo. Come on, kid.
Pretty much. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, the whole thing to be like, oh, I'm worried about the Jaguar doesn't have a back catalog. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's what they used half the time on there.
Well, to wonderful success because we needed like updates of like Breakout and Defender.
Yeah.
Those were games that we were just clamoring to have back. I also found it comical that he listed Street Fighter 2 as being like the flagship game for the Super Nintendo when that came out on the Genesis also, but
yeah. Might not have been at this point. I'm
no,
not
that's
sure.
true, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how like all of these magazines that we're kind of going through, like the best period of our lifetime as far as games go, yet like the rumor mill was all about the Jaguar, you know? So
Yeah. Yeah, we've had like how many Jaguar based questions, like it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it kind of dominates these just because it's like they made a big splash and then it completely bombed, so it's like you got both sides of that like kind of in the news there and how it affects the industry.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably because they brainwashed kids because they had such a good advertising, like, and marketing push with the Jaguar of like talking about how great and powerful it was with giving you snippets of games that looked really amazing, but not showing you enough to like let you quickly realize that, oh yeah, these are flaming piles of shit.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, it was easy for kids to be all hyped up about the Jaguar. Shit, I was, but there were. It was very well advertised and very poorly executed, I guess, is kind of the legacy of that thing.
Yeah. I certainly wouldn't have thought the Virtual Boy was a worrisome situation for him, though. Like, I remember seeing that thing, and I did not like that. Like, the store demo, do you remember those things?
Yep, I used to go to Toys R Us and play it. Well, and then you talk about, like, the opposite of a great advertising campaign. Like, those commercials with, like, the caveman and, like, that... Remember that? And, like, the Virtual Boy, like, attacked him and, like, wrapped the controller around him and, like, pulled him into the Virtual Boy. Like, I was so confused as a kid. I was like, what the hell is this? Like, I don't know what it is.
I don't remember that.
No, I don't like it. Yeah.
I don't remember any of that.
It was bad. Yeah, that was my first experience with the Virtual Boy. Like you were saying, just like the story kiosks. And, well, it was always that one game, too, like the flight one. That, right? Is that the one you played, too?
No, they had Waterworld at the one I played.
Shut up, really?
Yeah. I remember seeing like, and then it had like a little base to it. Yeah, it was kind of weird.
That's actually kind of cool. I only ever played the other one.
That's a weird period. Like even like I've been saying, like Atari dominates this, but like we haven't really had that much of a Virtual Boy thing. Like it was just like a blip. Like it was like a speed bump on the.
Yeah, they pulled the plug on that so fast.
Yeah.
But to answer this kid's question, yeah, don't worry about the Jaguar. Like top-notch games, yes, it deserves a place right alongside your Genesis, your Nintendo, and your Super Nintendo. Classic cartridge games. Just invest heavily. You're right, $250 is a steal. Or wait a year and a half after it's launched and you can just buy it new for $25. But it's up to you. Get one.
Yeah, it's.
Do the math.
That's good. Okay, I got a couple rapid fire what ifs for you guys. What if Gumby was a clay fighter.
Isn't he kind of?
I think he would fit right in.
He punches a lot of those blockhead guys and like fights them on a regular basis. Yeah, I'd argue that he was the original clay fighter. Really,
The OG clay fighter.
Yep.
Maybe he's like the Shao Kahn of this whole like tournament. He's the guy running the show. Yeah.
I could see it.
Yeah. What if Aladdin rubbed the game genie instead of the lamp?
That's a deep question. I'm not sure how to address that.
It is.
I feel like it would be a lot less useful. I mean, if you get the regular genie, he could help you cheat as well. Like, there's a lot more applications, I think, with the actual genie.
Also, are you implying that he directly rubbed the genie at some point? Because I feel like that would be a way different movie than the one that we actually got.
You don't remember that part where he got an extra wish back? How do you think he got that?
Well, it's like a way better subplot to Aladdin than we actually got.
What if Mario rode a Harley instead of Yoshi?
Well, I guess Pete would probably be a lot more happy. Did you know? Okay, so this is a little off topic, but did you know that they had to change the animation for Yoshi? Like, because you know how like you do like the jump thing and like there's an animation, but originally the original animation was Mario donkey punched Yoshi in the back of the head and it made him spit out his tongue.
Yeah, I did see that.
So he was literally like clocking this dinosaur in the back of the head to get him to spit out his tongue. So wrong.
It's a good answer. Less animal abuse, I guess, if he rode a Harley.
Yes.
I'm just picturing Miyamoto stopping by like the Harley headquarters and having meetings, trying to like gauge the culture of the Harleys, the Harley culture, and see where that fits in Nintendo world.
Seems like a natural thing for him. He wouldn't be out of place at all.
I assume he'd switch outfits too as soon as he got on it, right?
But you'd have
Yeah.
to, yeah.
Like a leather.
Yeah, the power-up outfit would be, all leather. Assless chaps.
What if the Mortal Kombat characters got arrested for murder?
Well, you wouldn't have a game.
That it kind of defeats the whole purpose of the tournament. Like, it's a fight to the death.
Plus, are you going to tell me that, like, in a game where the contestants can, like, rip the frickin' spinal cord out of people at will, they're going to get themselves arrested? Come on, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It would just be a pile of, like, police corpses at the bottom of a spike pit. Just saying.
I mean, it'd open it up for more contestants, though, right?
That's true.
True.
Maybe that's how we got the sequels.
I would hate to be like in the prison with, one of them like Sub-Zero. Oh yeah, I froze him and then like took his heart out. And the other guy is like, oh, well, I turned him into a baby. And I think that's going to do it. So that's going to put another episode in the books. Justin, do you want to take us out?
Yep. So you can find us we got the website. It's going to be weekendpodcast.com. On there, we got links to all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. As Ryan had stated earlier, feel free to send us email, comments, questions, anything. We can get them into the next episode. Our email is weekendrentalpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on iTunes and Google Play. And as always, be kind, rewind.